4 more of them to weld up. Have to be done by the end of the week, too, if we're going to keep to schedule. Pretty thick, these pressure vessels. We can do it, though. A few years ago, it would have been impossible. Electro slag welding's made a huge difference to us. Anyway, those figures will show you what I mean. I'll do a more detailed breakdown for you as soon as the job's finished.
Okay, thank you. These are the figures we like to see. 3 8-foot seams in 3-inch plate, welded up by one machine in one day. And only an average of 15 minutes for setting up each seam. That's a duty cycle of about 75%. Since we installed British oxygen electro slag equipment here, our welding shop economics have been transformed. Now we can weld thick plate sections just as easily as the thinner plate. Because electro slag is a single pass system, the problem of turning over very large components, perhaps weighing several tons, is eliminated. Simplified plate edge preparation, fast overall welding times, and little or no afterwork to the weld, all these advantages add up to a much higher work output with greatly improved economy. We can now tackle at any one time a much wider range of work than ever before. But there's always the odd welding job which involves the special or unusual application of the electro slag system. In that case, it's a real advantage to be able to call an outside expert. Mrs. Brooks, get me a call to British Oxygen, please. I want their welding development department.
Yes, sir.
As I was sure electro slag would be the answer to his problem, I asked John to phone you. You can put over the technicalities much better than I can.
Only too pleased to help. I'll certainly do what I can for him. I've got the name, Bateman. Thanks for letting me know, Frank. Bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Now, what they'll really need, first of all, is an outline of the principles. Let's see, there's the new pamphlet. And the reprint of last month's article in the journal. That'll be useful, too. There's one. Well, briefly, electro slag is an automatic vertical welding system for the butt joining of thick plates quickly, economically, and very efficiently. This particular machine, for example, will weld plates up to 18 inches thick. Although this system is a direct development from established submerged arc processes, the arc in this case is extinguished 30 seconds or so after the start of the weld. From there on, the current between electrode and weld metal is transmitted through the slag, which becomes conductive. By this means, the slag is heated to a temperature well above that of the metal's melting point. In this way, the weld pool is maintained, both plate edges are well penetrated, and complete fusion throughout the plate thickness occurs between the plate edges during one single pass by the electrode. But what are the mechanics of the electroslag system? The electrode wire is mechanically fed through a nozzle at a speed relative to a predetermined burn-off rate. The complete welding unit is mounted on a vertical column and electrically hoisted by chain and sprocket. To contain the slag bath and weld pool within the welding gap, 2 water-cooled copper dams are fitted each side of the plates and aligned to travel true throughout the weld. Clamped in position, the dams will follow the electrode up the gap as the work progresses, leaving below them the completed weld. The rate of vertical lift is initially preset and is controlled throughout the weld by a signal from a differential thermocouple within the copper dams. The thermocouple senses the hottest point of the molten bath, and hence the rate at which the weld pool is rising. The differential signals are amplified and fed to a pair of relays, which speed up or slow down the lifting motor accordingly. The preset speed control can also be adjusted manually at any time during the weld. Thus, the rate of weld deposition and the extent of plate edge fusion is under very accurate control at all times. The weld produced is free from such internal defects as porosity and slag inclusions, which are sometimes associated with other systems of automatic welding. Electro-slag vertical welding answers the fabrication industry's need for an economic and fully automatic method of joining thick plate in large sections. British Oxygen equipment has proved the value of the system over a wide range of applications in Britain and overseas. On a tank farm in Italy, vertical seams in storage tanks are automatically welded by this special purpose machine, one of 3 mounted on a strake to traverse from seam to seam. Half to 1.5 inch plates are joined at the rate of 1 hour per 8-foot run, giving many more seams per day than a team of manual welders could accomplish. This flange plate for a bridge girder is a typical electro-slag welding setup, where joints are to be made between similar or dissimilar thicknesses in mild and alloy steels. A standard single-wire machine is in use. At this plant in Northern Ireland, turbine casings and transformer tanks are welded, again by a single-wire machine. The process can be applied to circumferential seams using a technique developed by British Oxygen, as in this example of a 5-foot diameter cylinder with a 2.5 inch wall thickness. Here, a machine was specially developed for the customer to use on a wide range of applications, including boiler drums, forgings, and ship's stern frames. By changing columns, the welding length can be increased. Additional shoe arrangements enable T-butt joints, corner joints, and circumferential seams to be welded. Of course, the person with real day-to-day knowledge of the practical advantages of electro-slag welding is the fabrication manager.
Right from the start, electro-slag made life a lot easier for everyone here in the welding shop. Time-consuming and costly edge preparation is a thing of the past now. A square, flame-cut edge is all that's necessary. Only about 15 minutes are needed for setting up, and no preheating's required. And a bit of attention at the start while the pool's being established, and from there on the whole operation practically looks after itself. The precautions we used to take against distortion and shrinkage, like turning the work over and over, aren't needed anymore. All we have to do is set up the plates with a predetermined distortion allowance, and the final dimension will be accurate. It's a good weld, too. Nicely even, with no cracks and no porosity, and slag inclusions no longer worry us. Versatility and economy in vertical welding are the great attractions of electro-slag welding from my point of view. And now there's a new development in electro-slag. British Oxygen's simple and portable CN single-wire machine.
CN stands for consumable nozzle. This compact, simple and completely portable automatic machine works on exactly the same principle as the larger sub-arc machines, but the mechanism is rather different. To start with, the wire feed is clamped or located at the top of the weld gap and remains there throughout the weld. The complex vertical speed controls of the conventional machine are eliminated. Instead, water-cooled copper dams are clamped to the weld face, either as short sections which can be leapfrogged as the weld progresses, or as stationary dams extending over the full length of the welding gap. The wire is fed through the consumable nozzle, and the weld is begun by striking and then extinguishing the arc in the usual way. As the slag bath rises, the nozzle is consumed to become part of the deposited weld metal. The nozzle contributes about 1/10 to 1/3 of metal to the weld, depending on the thickness of the material, and so its chemical composition is selected to give high weld metal quality. The single-wire consumable nozzle machine can be used on plate thicknesses up to 3 inches. For greater thicknesses up to 6 feet, additional nozzle and wire feed units can be added without difficulty, giving the consumable nozzle system an extremely wide field of application. British Oxygen Electro Slag welding equipment is cutting costs and increasing production wherever it's used, in shipbuilding, bridge building, engineering, and structural and fabrication work of all kinds. Mr. Bateman? Oh yes, put him through. Hello, Mr. Bateman. Frank Romney of Ferroplate mentioned that you'd be ringing. I've just been getting together some information on electro slag welding for you.